Each time that I show these, or each time that they are presented or exist in my studio, they're sort of made again. They have to be made in context. The butterflies are alive in that sense that they have a life cycle that's maybe different than the permanence that one would think of in a painting or some other sculptural object. They're sort of behaviors, or the capturing of a behavior. To me, that's something that I started to do in my work, sort of at the same time that I started to think about my own practice as a teacher, and what the, maybe you could call, medium of teaching is, or what is the sound of teaching, and how it sort of ennests the precarity of relationships of influence. Say frail, but I think of as like meek materials. There's many different things in the show that to me activate these sort of ambivalences between grace and control. To have the two things sort of embodied in one form is really important to me. That's like what the act of bleaching came from. It's like a kind of form of overcorrection that makes something both seemingly like angelic, vapid, like accepting of all things, translucent, and becoming everything behind it, but also, denatured. These tables are all borrowed from daycare centers or learning centers, and that's sort of like in a similar way to the window being open, sort of sucking the outside world in. These are specifically called kidney-shaped activity tables, which are a semicircle with a teacher's curve or a cut in the middle of them. And on top of each of the tables is a container. The container holds a collection or a body of water, and in it a set of these butterfly forms, or what I call teachers' monarchs. These are collards that have been cinched together with colorful zip ties, bleached, and they go through a sort of set of baths as they absorb and transform to become more and more translucent. What does a teacher really create? How does my interaction with something actually, how can I delegate the form making to something else? That could be somebody else coming into the space and making a streamer move. It could be the air being pulled in. It could be a table that comes from somewhere. It could be a vegetable that I'm just actually, emptying. After I have a bad class, I kind of step back and think to myself, certainly on Zoom, but step back and think to myself, like, why is this so difficult? That like what I'm trying to do is actually just make somebody feel that they're doing something in their own will, with their own will. That's a question of animation in a certain sense. It's also a question of control. It's also a question of like leashing and letting flow. So in terms of this work, there's certainly like this metaphor of a butterfly or a monarch that has its own agency, has its own migratory path, has its own form of conviviality and collective action. That the other sense of monarch seems to sort of debunk. Both the impossibility of direct touch in teaching, and also the impossibility of direct touch in some of the things that I make. At no point can I possess the form of these things, nor can anybody else. They're momentary.